Would you like to know an interesting fact? Well, while we're all, and rightly so, concerned that brand new electric cars are expensive, it seems that there's a bit of a breakthrough, a bit of a price correction happening in the used market as supply is starting to catch up with demand. Don't know if you did economics. There's a little curve that basically says when that happens, the price starts to come down, which is great news. So what it means is that you can pick up a lightly used electric car for about half the price that it costs brand new. Yes, okay, that does mean heavy depreciation if you stumped up the money initially, but it is great news if you want a really good value electric car that's barely been worn in. Now, if that's the kind of news that might convince you to buy a nearly new battery-powered beauty, well, the good news is we are here to help you decide what works for you. So do your thing. Click on all those relevant buttons, switch those notifications on, swing by at electrifying.com because we're here to help you make those decisions and make sure it's the right one for you. Take this Peugeot e-2008, for example. From the forecourt, this would have cost between about 35 grand and 41.5 grand. But even a quick search on the adverts on electrifying.com found us plenty of cars for £18,000 with about 20,000 miles or less. The cheapest was under 17 grand. That's usually for a car about 3 years old, which I think is pretty good going. Something to be aware of though is that they're probably just out of their manufacturer's official transferable 3-year warranty, which came with unlimited mileage. But the battery is guaranteed for 8 years or 70% state of charge, so there are no worries when it comes to that. And even though the car is technically out of warranty, you can extend it if you want. And remember, a car that's just out of warranty would probably have had any issues fixed for free. I mean, why wouldn't you? A lot of these cars will have been on a 3-year lease deal, so people tend to keep up with the scheduled servicing. And I'm not talking about an old rubbish car here, am I? I mean, come on, look at it. In the world of small electric SUVs, the e-2008 has always been one of the best looking. Come on, you've got to agree with me. I mean, look at it. The claw-like lights at the front. There's a lovely stylish rear. It's more striking than something like an MG ZS or a Kia e-Niro for the same age. Plus, I've always quite liked a bit of the two-tone vibe. So on the more expensive version, you get a contrast roof, and I think it makes the car look a little bit more suave and sophisticated. It is worth noting that entry-level versions get 16-inch wheels, but the more expensive get 17 or 18. So that's a nice, easy way to identify ones with more kit from the outside. And it's actually just as innovative and fun in here as well. Take a look around. I love this. This is Peugeot's 3D eye cockpit. It's got this kind of magic eye effect, which definitely makes it stand out from the crowd. But the design, the materials, everything, they're just a little bit more interesting. They've got a little bit more to it than some of the e-2008's competition. I mean, look at these keys. They look good, they're a bit different, makes it stand out. A few things worth noting though. One is this. Peugeot loves a small steering wheel. Now what you're supposed to do is set your seat so you look over the steering wheel and then see the driver's information display up here, which does work in theory. It does actually work for me in practice as well, but it doesn't suit everyone. So it's worth going, checking, sitting in one and make sure it works for you. Otherwise, that's going to be really annoying. We've also heard that if you wear glasses, the 3D effect does strange things to them. Watch out. So try it out, wear your specs. Perhaps you need to do a kind of inspection. Anyway, moving on quickly. But you don't get the fun eye cockpit until you get into the more expensive grades. So it might not be an option for you, worth checking. Another thing to note is that the e-2008 isn't quite as big as some of its obvious contemporaries, so make sure it's got the space that you need. There are versions of the 2008 with engines, so it's got a hump in the rear, and the boot is a chunk smaller than other electric cars. It's not tiny at 434 litres, but if you have a dog, it might need checking. Is this the point where we all measure our dogs? Or children? But to know if you're getting the best value, you need to know which version you're buying. Now the e-2008 came in 4 versions, all with the same 46 kilowatt hour battery. And unsurprisingly, they just step up the kit. You get a standard on each. So the Active Premium Plus is the base one with the 16-inch wheels, but you do get rear parking sensors, some camera kit, a 7-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, plus a load of other stuff. It really is quite well equipped. But like I said, you don't get the cool 3DI cockpit instrument cluster until you upgrade to the Allure Premium Plus spec. And the GT and GT Line versions get the contrast roof and some pretty cool unique body bits, including 18-inch wheels and glossy black wheel arches. They all get the same charging kit though, so you're looking at 7.5 hours to charge on a standard home wall box, or more like 30 minutes from 10 to 80% on a big enough public charger, thanks to its 100 kilowatt DC charging power, which is more than enough. Don't forget though, a 46 kilowatt hour battery isn't all that big, so you're not throwing in a huge amount of range per stop. As for common issues, some E2008s have had problems maintaining a charge, and there was a small recall of 1,100 cars that necessitated a fix. But otherwise, they're bang on average when it comes to reliability compared to other cars of the same type. Not particularly bad and not particularly outstanding. Oh, and it's worth checking the condition of the tyres. A fitted tyre for the average E2008's 17-inch wheel from a decent brand is roughly 220 quid a corner, so have a look at that rubber. And don't forget that you have to do the usual. If the car has spent a lot of time in town, have a good look for bumps and bruises and curbed wheels. Not a whole heap of money to fix, but it is just a bit annoying and might indicate a lack of care and attention. Ditto on anything that looks particularly worn out on the interior. These cars aren't all that old, so the trim should still be in really good nick. Some E2008s will have been used as driving school cars. While that's not such a cause for concern on an electric car, as there's no clutch to burn out, you should definitely check for damages and see if the stickers have left any marks. So, the all-important question now, what's it like to drive? Well, here's an interesting thing for you. In all E2008s, it's essentially the same underneath as you get in the smaller E208. What that actually means is that the battery drives a 136 brake horsepower motor through the front wheels. It's not particularly fast, 0 to 62 miles per hour in 8.5 seconds, but as ever with an electric car, it's nice and perky. It's smooth, it's relatively quiet, so it feels fast. Now when it comes to WLTP range, we're talking 214 miles. That's quite a bit less than something like a Kia e-Niro or MG ZS Electric, but it does drive really nicely. So really look into your driving style, your driving habits, to see if that range is going to be enough for you. Also worth noting, if you put it into eco mode, the power drops to a whopping 83 brake horsepower. Woohoo! So best to leave that mode to driving around town. You are going to be needing to be in sport mode to get your full power from the motor at all times. And even in sport mode, I hate to break it to you, you are not going to be winning any drag races. But overall, it's a nice drive. It's based on the same platform as the 208, obviously, but also the same platform as the Vauxhall Corsa and the Mocha. So it's not huge. So consequently, it's nice and nippy, easier to park. But there's actually more space inside than those cars I just mentioned. And another thing to remember is that these cars, well, they don't stand still, do they? The E2008 recently had a refresh, which meant a slightly bigger battery, slightly longer range, and a few other changes as well. Now, yes, I get maybe that's a bit annoying if you've bought the original one, but what it does mean is that second-hand prices of the old model should drop even further as people upgrade to the new one. But none of that should put you off. I really liked the Peugeot E2008 when it was new, and not much has changed, to be honest. Okay, it might have relatively modest range. It's not the biggest SUV out there, but it looks fresh. The savings you can make with a pre-loved version make it a really attractive offering. It is definitely one to put on the list. So have we convinced you to take a look at a second-hand Peugeot E2008, or maybe one of its competitors like a Kia e-Niro or Hyundai Kona? If you're undecided, don't worry, we're here to hold your hand, take a look at some of our other used videos and say hi to us at electrifying.com.